Hello and welcome back to Book Trib TV. My name is Cameron Kimball. I'm on the editorial team here at Book Trib, where readers come to discover. Today, I am so thrilled to be welcoming award-winning children's book author and illustrator Anoosha Syed. She's illustrated over 40 children's books, including the AP ALA honor book BILAL Cook's Doll and her solo debut, That's Not My Name. Now she's here to give us an inside look at the newly released Lost Stick, where a day at the park turns into a vast adventure across the globe, all for one dog to brighten his best friend's day. Anoosha, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be talking about my book with you. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
Of course. So, first question, what set you on the path to becoming a children's book author and illustrator?
So, this was a kind of accidental path where I had known that I wanted to be an artist, and I did go to school for illustration. However, I originally wanted to work in animation. And so, after I graduated, I was working in animation for a little while and kind of working on children's books on the side because that was what was like part of my degree. And then over time, I kind of realized that I really love children's books. When I was younger, I actually really wanted to be a writer. That was my first dream. And so it kind of made sense for me that, like, okay, I have such a love for books, I have such a love for artwork. And most importantly, I absolutely love working with children. And it just made sense for me to go into the world of publishing. And so I made the decision a couple of years ago to make the full switch into children's book illustration. And I was illustrating books for a while. And then I decided, like, you know what? I have my own stories to tell as well. I want to start writing as well, which is how we've ended up with That's Not My Name. And now, most recently, Lost Stick.
Yes. So, what first inspired you to write Lost Stick in particular?
So I was actually writing That's Not My Name and Lost Stick around the same time, and I pitched both together as like a package deal. And so That's Not My Name was a book that was very personal to me. That was kind of a book that I wish I had as a kid. Whereas Lost Stick was, I wanted to write something that was funny. I absolutely love that as like an illustrator, I've been contacted to work on a lot of really important stories, a lot of books that are very centered on my culture and my religion. And I love that. But also, I felt like I was being typecast into a very specific little box. And I felt like there was so much more to me. Like, I really wanted to write goofy stories or work on ones with like just like silly, topics and not necessarily like big important messaging. But no one was hiring me for that kind of stuff. And so I decided that for, if no one's going to hire me, then I might as well write those stories myself. And so that's what Lost Stick is that I wanted to write something that was completely just like a fun time, just a goofy little story about a little dog who goes on an adventure. No lessons really learned, just a fun adventure.
Well, it is very fun. And besides that, how else is working on Lost Stick different to your past projects in terms of the art?
Yes. So this is actually my very first fully traditionally illustrated book. Previously, I have only worked on books that I digitally illustrated, my past like 30 plus books, which I have loved and everything. But kind of like last year, I became kind of art blocked and just tired of digital media, and I really wanted to try something different. And so I got into the world of painting and I really enjoyed it. And initially, Lost Stick was supposed to be digitally done. I had even done a page fully digitally. And then I thought, you know what, let's just try it. I've kind of like worked on my skills a little bit for the past year. Potentially, I could do it traditionally. And so I did a little test and I kind of liked it. And then I took it one step further, and instead of just painting, I decided to do it with collage, like paper cut materials, which is something that I had never done before. And it was a huge challenge. And I definitely made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I learned a lot of stuff, but I'm so happy with how the book turned out. And it kind of proved to me that I could be a traditional illustrator. And so every book I've worked on since Lost Stick has been traditional, but this is the first one, which is why it's so different and unique in so many different ways from all my other books.
That's awesome. Um, How long does it take for you to publish a book from, start to finish?
Oh gosh, it takes a really, really long time. Um, this book in particular took a while because, as I said earlier, I pitched this with That's Not My Name at the same time. So when I first wrote Lost Stick, like my very, very first draft for my pitch, that was back in like 2019. I don't even know how many years that is because 2019 in my head was just last year. I want to say like almost like 4 years ago. So yeah, and like the book just came out now, but I wrote the first draft and then it was picked up. Then I worked on That's Not My Name, and it wasn't until 2022, the end of the year, I started actually properly working on Lost Stick again. Because it had been so long since I last saw the draft, I had to do a lot of rewrites because, like I had evolved and I saw the text again and I was like, oh, I could use some changes. So I would say, even though it took 4 years in total, the actual amount of work I think was a year and a half, with like 6 months for writing, and then about a year on and off just doing the artwork. So it takes a really long time.
It seems like it. What would you say is the most challenging aspect of working on children's books, and what would you say is the most rewarding?
I think the most challenging part is I mean, I want to make sure that it's something that kids enjoy. And there are so many times where, like, when I'm working on something, I'll kind of think of it in, like, what would I like? What would like my peers enjoy? Like people my own age. And I always get like, I kind of forget that, wait a minute, this is actually for kids in the end. And so when I've been doing a lot of like school visits lately, and so I read books to kids and I kind of see, okay, this is actually what resonates with them. I thought this page was really funny, but actually it might go over their heads a little bit. Oh, this page that I thought was just okay, they really love it. So that's like one thing that is kind of a little bit tricky, is that you have to really know your audience. One that, of course, has to be something they enjoy. And a lot of people forget that kids are so much smarter than we give them credit for, that they're so, creative, and they're so like curious. And you really want to make sure that the books are stimulating for them. So that's like one thing that is quite challenging. And then the thing that's rewarding is, again, the kids, is that after the book comes out and I get to read it to kids, and see people enjoying it, and then getting comments from parents being like, oh, this is my kid's favorite book. This is something that they really saw themselves in. It's just, it's extremely rewarding, and it makes me really happy that I have this job.
What's something that many people don't seem to realize about the book industry?
There are a lot of things. It's kind of hard to choose, I guess. One part of it, and I kind of think of this on like the business side of things, because a lot of people think that this is a very fun job, that I get to draw all day and kind of write all day. But it really only takes up maybe 20-30% of the job, because unfortunately, it's still a job at the end of the day, where I am a business owner and I have to do a lot of my day is just sending emails and doing bookkeeping and going over contracts and chasing after payments. And it's a lot of really, really boring stuff, because it is a job. That's one thing. Another thing that a lot of people don't know is that when you're working on a book with an author and illustrator, usually 90% of the time, the author and the illustrator, they don't speak to each other at all throughout the process. There's kind of like, the publisher acts as like the in between. So there's no communication. And this is just to keep things professional. And after the book is done, I will contact the author and, kind of chat with them. But a lot of people think that when you're working on a book, the author and the illustrator are just buddy buddies throughout the entire time. But it's, yeah, they kind of keep us separate. And that's something that a lot of people don't know.
Wow, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Um, along with your work in children's books, you also have a YouTube channel where you give industry advice to authors and artists. What drove you to create this digital resource for other creative people?
So I started my YouTube channel in 2020, like when the pandemic was going on. And essentially, like right before that had happened, I really wanted to get into teaching. And I had already started doing a couple of like guest talks at like colleges and things like that. And then pandemic happened and that wasn't going to happen. And so I had all of this material that I had done. And I was like, you know what, I could probably turn this into a YouTube video. And I got a lot of like really great response out of it and I really enjoyed it. So the main reason this came about was prior to the YouTube channel, I had a podcast that I did with my friend, which our slogan was basically everything that we never learned in art school that we're kind of like explaining, because both me and my friend had not the best art school experiences where in my case, they did teach me like how to draw, and it was a really good, stimulating environment. But they did not prepare me for the world outside of school, in the sense of like running a business, how to find work, even something as simple as setting up a portfolio. And I studied in Europe, and I had kind of moved straight to North America, and I had no resources, no connections, and I was trying to find things online, and there was nothing. And because of that, I made a lot of mistakes when I first started out and took bad contracts, took on, just made a lot of bad mistakes for my career. And so I thought that like with a YouTube channel, I would be able to share what I know and share these resources, just because I felt like there was nothing online that was transparent and nothing that was really sharing that information. And I think it's so, so important for transparency in this industry because it's so isolating. So yeah, that's always been my goal, to share accessible information, not just for people in North America, but most importantly for people in the global South who don't have access to this information.
Well, that's amazing. What's one thing about you that some people might be surprised to learn?
A lot of people don't know that I moved around a lot when I was growing up. People just assume that I have always been in Canada, but that's only been the case for the past, like I moved here 8 years ago. I am a third culture kid, like an international school baby, where because of my dad's job, we moved around a lot when I was growing up. I went to 7 different schools and like 5 different countries. And it was, I mean, at the time, it was really tough just always being the new kid. But I had access. I'm very privileged in that I was able to see the world in that way and be able to be connected with so many interesting people from around the world. And that definitely influenced my art and everything. And yeah, so a lot of people don't know that.
What is a piece of advice you'd give to people thinking of writing a children's book or just writers in general?
This is really boring advice, but it just is the thing that everyone says, is to read as much as you can, where you want to familiarize yourself with what's out there, what books are popular, what books have been like staples for like years and years and years. Like, why do people keep coming back to them? Stuff outside your genre, stuff of like just like different types of books, and just read as much as you can to understand what makes a good book, and to also read, if you're like writing something, to have it read by as many people as you can. That includes your peers, so like people who are within the same industry as you, who can give you constructive criticism, people who are not in your industry, and most importantly, kids. Like I mentioned before, like you need this is your target audience. Kids need to be reading your work as well.
What do you hope readers, young and old, learn or take away from Lost Stick?
Um, well, as I mentioned, there isn't really a strong message in Lost Stick, apart from the fact that it's a sweet story of what a little puppy is willing to do for his owner. But I hope that they just enjoy the journey. I hope they enjoy just like a love of reading and art. With this book, especially, like I wanted to put in as many little details as I could in the drawing, because my favorite books when I was a kid were like the ones where like I could just get lost in the artwork and just almost make my own stories because of how much was going on in the art. And so I hope that just like anyone reading the book, like they have like a sense of curiosity, and like they have like a love for writing and reading and just being inspired by it.
So this is our that's amazing, and this is our one last bonus question before we have to sign off. Out of all the places that Milo travels in his search for stick, which one was your favorite, either to illustrate or just to visit yourself?
Oh, it was so hard creating all of those little worlds for Milo to visit because I had listed out so many different possibilities, but because a picture book is only so long, I had to cut out a lot of things. The one that like I was like, I cannot get rid of this is the scene towards the end when Milo is in Paris and he's looking over on he's like in like a little apartment and it just he's looking over all of these people who are with their own dogs who kind of look like them. And I just try to put in a lot of little details around. There's a poster for a potential movie based on his life called Lost Stick 3, and it's got like a really buff Milo act like an action star there. There's like a plane that has like the messaging on it, and like all of these like little things that I tried to sneak in. And I just thought that the idea of like a little French Milo in his little beret, just somberly looking over everyone, just had like such a cinematic feel to it that I think would translate so well into just like a movie or something. Where I love that page so much. That's definitely my favorite.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much, Anusha, for joining us today. This has been so wonderful. Thank you to our viewers for tuning back into Book Trip TV. I'm Cameron Kimball, and we'll see you next time.
Yay! Thank you.